I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite Lorecast on the Citadel.
Welcome to the Mass Effect Lorecast, the podcast where we explore the vast universe of lore behind the Mass Effect games. We'll talk about all the details you may have missed, ask the hard questions, and more. Spectres, welcome back to the Mass Effect Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here as usual with N7, the legend himself. Welcome back, N7. How's it going, man? How's your week been?
It's been good. It's been very busy. You know, of course, the news is picking up, but it's also been busy because I've been trying out some new games. I've been ramping up my streams of Mass Effect, but also trying Elden Ring.
Yeah, and somebody's eating chips in the background, it sounds like.
I can hear that. Yeah.
You're in a chip factory as well. Yeah, dude, I've been playing Elden Ring as well, man. That game's, I just beat Godfrey. Was the guy with all the grafted arms on him?
That's like the first main story boss, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude, and I did it without summoning any friends. I did it all on my own, and I kicked his butt after like 20 tries, but I kicked his butt. And this is not the Elden Ring Lorecast, although that sounds like an amazing show to make. This is not a hint. I'm not doing that. I just launched the Lord of the Rings Lorecast. That's taking up all my extra time. But who knows? Maybe someday we'll have to do one of those. Or maybe somebody else should join the Rocket Club or something and start that show. That would be awesome. But anyway, that Elden Ring's been awesome. Been loving it. I love me some Souls games, and the difficulty is one of the things that is enjoyable and also pulls all your hair out. But we'll talk about more Elden Ring later on after the show. But anyway, what are we talking about this week?
So today, as some may have guessed, given the direction that we were headed with Andromeda episodes, today we're going to address another significant group in Andromeda that gives rise to a power dynamic critical to the story and leads to multiple sub-factions. I'm going to call them sub-factions because we'll get into it. They're not exactly large.
Got it. And on another quick note, this is something I skipped over because I got so distracted by Elden Ring. Although we're talking about Andromeda today, it was recently a different game's 10th birthday. Mass Effect 3, happy birthday. You're a big 1-0.
Happy birthday, Mass Effect 3 came out March 6th, 2012. And I don't know about you, but I actually remember what I did for the release. I stood in line at this mall called Easton Mall in Columbus, Ohio. And I stood in line at a GameStop until midnight the night before. And I remember I was there with my buddy Tyler. It was a great time. You know, how old was I? I think I was 17 or 18. So, and there was a terrible cosplay there. I'm not gonna say what it was, but it wasn't that well done. And I still felt like, you know what? Props to that person for having the courage. Good
for you. You probably shouldn't have been wearing that in public, but you've got a lot of confidence.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That's awesome. I remember malls. And happy birthday, Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, malls seem like a thing of the past now. Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah, it's not really so much of a thing. There's only a few of those that are still like alive and healthy anymore. But anyway, let's talk about some of these sub-factions.
Right, we're talking specifically about the Initiative's Exiles. More of what I would say is a loose grouping of people not wanting to live under the Andromeda Initiative authority. I wouldn't really call the Exiles any organized faction per se, but we'll get there.
All right.
So, Milky Way colonists became Exiles because of a series of events following the Andromeda Initiative's first arrival in the Helios cluster, when a lack of resources, a dark energy storm, an opaque decision-making process and leadership, and the general stress of survival all came to a fever pitch. And they all really influenced a portion of the Milky Way colonists to rebel against the Initiative's command.
Okay, so it sounds like for Andromeda that this is a pretty impactful story arc.
Arc. Yeah. Love it. Yes. Yes. That will be my pun of the day. Anyway, yes, this is definitely impactful for Andromeda. It is probably understated in terms of the entire game's relevance. Like, I don't really think that the game does a good job of explaining how impactful this is for the entire Andromeda initiative and for the Pathfinder going forward. And it sets up basically all of the divisions that we witness on Kadara, the Exiles and their arc and whatnot. It's also the subject of a book called Mass Effect Andromeda Nexus Uprising. This, like the rebellion off of the Nexus, and then the subsequent people who are exiled from there, is a prequel, a direct prequel to Mass Effect Andromeda. Much like Mass Effect Revelation is a prequel to Mass Effect 1. And you've heard me, I've spoken a lot about how much I love Mass Effect Revelation. I haven't read Mass Effect Andromeda Nexus Uprising. I'm sure it's amazing. But from what I understand, the lore in that book is just as equally critical for understanding the subsequent game as Mass Effect Revelation is.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a trend where they set up the games with a book that creates some sort of foundation for stuff that they didn't necessarily have an opportunity to explain in the games themselves.
Yeah, I'm wondering, at least in Drew Karpyshyn's case, I'm wondering how much was like, man, I really wanted to be able to throw this in the game, but we just couldn't fit it in there somehow. So he just maybe took notes and emails and things that he had developing the lore of the game and then put them into a book form. Maybe that's what happened. Right.
I can imagine that, especially with with games that are this big and this broad, that there's a lot of stuff that just kind of falls on the cutting room floor. There's a lot of these concepts and pieces that I know that a lot of times these writers have, it's that, I don't know if you feel this way, and you might because you're a reporter and you're a writer too. And I'm the kind of personality that when there's something in my head and I want somebody else to know that information, I want them to know it completely. Like, I feel like if I know something, then I get joy out of explaining and sharing all of my knowledge in a complete way and putting everything in my brain and depositing it in somebody else. And I want them to understand it the way I understand it. Does that make sense? And if I don't do that clearly or in a way that actually takes what I have and shares it completely, then I haven't done my job correctly. Like I'm shortcutting you. I'm not giving you everything. And so therefore I'm not giving you enough. Does that make sense?
It's not the full truth.
It's not the full truth. Like it's my job to give you everything I know in order for you to have the same understanding I do. Otherwise you won't enjoy it as much as I do. It's like, it's that kind of thing. It's an act of giving for you to, if you're going to understand this game and love it as much as I do, then I need to explain it in the way that I understand it so that you can enjoy it the way I enjoy it. And that doesn't always work for everybody, but that's kind of my feeling for that. And I have a feeling that a lot of writers feel that way too. So when something gets cut out of a game, there's probably that feeling of like, oh, but they're not going to enjoy this quest as much if they don't know X, Y, and Z. So let's put that in a book so that they can understand those things too. So that when they play through that quest, now they're going to get the whole story. That was a long way of saying that, but.
Well, yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean, I don't particularly write fiction, but I do feel that writers have a tendency to view any stone being unturned as a failure of communication.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, you never want that. I mean, it's hard enough to convey meaning, like subtle meaning in writing, that sometimes we just overspeak, but and sometimes there's just not enough time to put everything in. I mean, hell, there's been so many podcasts that we've had where I wanted to go multiple different directions with a topic, but I just realized we weren't going to be able to get there because, I mean, there's just not enough time.
Yeah, and sometimes there's just not enough. There's, like you said, you just can't get into the nuance in a way clear enough. I don't know. We could do a whole episode about the limitations of language and communication, but sometimes you just don't have the faculty to express the nuance concisely and clearly enough so that everybody can understand it. And it's just the limitations of language sometimes.
And we'll dive more into that, Mass Effect Andromeda book when we recap the external media in future podcasts. We'll get a little bit more into that then. So I don't want to spoil too much about that book, but we are going to be discussing, a large theme of the book today. So it is very important in the Mass Effect Andromeda timeline to understand why the colonists rebelled. Why did they, have this uprising? Well, to understand that, we got to go back a little bit. So you remember, I think it was either last week or I think it was 2 weeks ago. We talked a little bit about the Scourge. And when we were talking about the Andromeda Initiative, we talked about how different planets and everything could be in from the 600 years it takes to survey the planets to the 600 years later when you arrive in Andromeda,
right.
How much change could occur.
Right.
Well, the initiative's journey is kind of borked from the get-go. And the Nexus arrives first. The Nexus is supposed to be this new citadel, an administrative hub from which colonies launch, and they can coordinate these cross-colony policies and defense. And, it's an administrative hub. And it housed almost all or most of, if not all of the Andromeda Initiative's administrators. So all of the bigwigs, all of everyone like that, they were on the Nexus, as I understand. And then each of the arcs had their own bigwigs, but it wasn't quite to the extent that the Nexus was. Okay. The Nexus had project leads. And the Nexus is this massive space station. And when it gets there to Andromeda, it collides with the Scourge, the dark energy storm. And this devastates the station. Like it rips apart parts of the station. There's tons of damage, like immense amounts of death. And a lot of the people who died included upper management. Leadership. Because,
right. Because it was like corporate endeavor. Right. Yeah.
Corporate endeavor. And we ragged enough on how the Andromeda Initiative is overly corporate. So I won't get back into that. But more or less, the founder of the Andromeda Initiative and the leader of the project, Jan Garson, she's found dead. And like we spoke about a few episodes ago when we covered the Andromeda Initiative, she was murdered and likely assassinated by the mysterious benefactor. But that's not what people think at first. At first, people think that, well, we just hit the Scourge. A lot of people died. Jan Garson was in the Nexus. Probably, Scourge resulted in her death somehow.
Right. Simplest explanation is usually right. So it was probably that. Sure.
Right. And it was already a dark energy storm that no one seemed to understand.
Right.
Who knows what this can do.
Yeah.
And, the line of succession for leadership is completely shattered. It is shattered to the point where, and when I say it's corporate, corporatocracies are often like they're autocracies, and so there's a line of succession like that with one person at the top. Well, this goes down to the 8th person in line.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like on Battlestar Galactica, where like the head of education ends up becoming the president.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or My Fellow Americans, very obscure reference. I'm not sure if anyone in chat gets that, but it's an old movie with Jack Lemmon and I can't remember his first name, but Gardner. Anyway, very obscure reference. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But it goes to this guy who is an acerbic number cruncher who no one really likes, and he doesn't really have great communication skills. So it's Jarun Tan, a Solarian. Mm-hmm. And it's actually voiced by the guy who, I can't remember his name right now, but he was in Silicon Valley. Kumail, I think is his first name.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned him on the previous episode. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's Director Tan. And he plays that role so well because Tan is not likable in the game. And he's totally a financial number cruncher guy that does not know how to communicate with anyone, but he's supposed to be the CEO of this project. And so leadership is more or less decapitated. And the planned central hub for all of the arcs is fraught with problems from scourge damage. And so I have a few questions, immediately. Did the initiative plan on having to make such enormous repairs? Probably not, right? Because how would you plan for a storm you don't understand?
Well, also, that seems like catastrophic repairs. Like, how do you plan for catastrophic repairs? Right? Like,
that is a new level of redundancy.
Right. Like, I would expect that you would plan for, maintenance and, a certain level of just keeping things running. But, entire systems falling apart and massive levels of death is like, that's a level of, there's no way of, we're just going to tack on another 50% of the space station on top of itself, just in case half of the ship falls off. Like, you can't plan for that.
No, you can't. Like, when you're making a 600-year journey, you really got to cut out all the non-essentials.
Right. Yeah.
Did they keep extra duct tape on hand? I don't think so.
Not that much. Not that much. Yeah.
Now, the repairs, they could be done quicker with a steady stream of resources, and from any colonies. But there's two problems here, because the Nexus just arrived. They're walking into a completely undeveloped cluster, or at least so they thought.
Right.
Complete undeveloped by any Milky Way species. So it's not like they can stop at a gas station and be like, hey, you got any tools in there? No, there's none of that going on. There's no existing logistics or mining infrastructure. And so they would have to make it. But the first people to be woken up when they arrived in the Helios cluster were only the very critical administrators and other key personnel. Very small group of people.
Yeah.
And the golden worlds that they were told would be perfect for habiting did not turn out to be so golden. Because of the scourge, because of a number of other problems with the Ket and radiation on some worlds, these worlds changed during the 600-year voyage. So this complicates a lot of issues with the repairs and whatnot. And now all of a sudden they have to be self-sustaining, but they were never supposed to be self-sustaining. Big problem, So now Nexus leadership is in way over their heads. And I got to make a quick comment here, probably underqualified too. These are people that are working in corporate Milky Way for better or for worse.
Yeah. These are the people who would not survive the zombie apocalypse.
No.
Right. The people who survive the zombie apocalypse are the people who are like the blue collar workers who have been working tough jobs their whole entire lives, who know how to duct tape pieces of wrenches and saws together in order to cut the zombies down, and know how to repair a car engine in order to drive out of town, not the stockbroker and the CEO of the local company who have never worked in a garage in their entire lives. Right.
Yeah, for real.
So
and
that's who they need in this situation, are the people who are going to be able to repair the ship with their hands.
Right. And those people haven't been woken up.
Right.
And I have to doubt the Nexus leadership's recruiting abilities. And we'll get into a little bit of that later in this episode and the next episode. But more or less, they constantly surround themselves with people who I have no idea how they ended up in those positions that they ended up in.
Corporatocracy.
Yeah, exactly.
The Peter principle. They were given, raises to the point of their own whatever the word is. I lose words. Thanks, migraine medicine.
Self-importance.
Yeah, their own inability to actually, do anything in that position. Incompetency. Yeah. To their level of incompetency. Anyway.
So Director Tan decides in his infinite wisdom, let's wake up more experts from cryo. We need more
cooks. We don't need more servers. Let's wake up more cooks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We need more hands on deck, and maybe they will know what to do. I'm simplifying things and I'm paraphrasing here for the sake of brevity, but yeah, that's more or less the rationale, I think. So they bring more of these experts out of cryo. But the problem is that this means more mouths to feed. Mouths to feed with food they don't have, with resources they don't have. And so Tan enacts rationing after a couple of different colonies, a couple of different outposts on these supposed golden worlds don't pan out. And there's a couple of different outposts that fail on Eos because of Ket. The Ket, we've gone over them, the Borg, and radiation. So there's natural occurring hazards as well, which is really putting all of this together. All the scourge damage, the decapitated leadership, the failed outposts is putting the squeeze on the Nexus. And the leadership, again, is not, they're in way over their heads. And this is make or break. This is survival, right? There's no going home at the end of this day and being like, well, I guess I lost my 401k, but hey, I'm alive. Right.
I'm going to go live with my parents. See you guys.
Yeah, exactly. There's not even that. And so there's understandably, there's a growing amount of discontent among the populace that is awake on the Nexus. And Tan is not transparent about the decisions that Tan is going to make. Not even with his co-administrators. He's not transparent. Mm-hmm. And I highly doubt that he puts out a newsletter.
Right. And even if he did, he wouldn't be transparent. It would just be like,
doesn't seem like
it would just be corporate BS. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing with Tan. He's not even interested in the corporate BS. Like, he's just going to stick to protocol and screw PR entirely. I can't even imagine. But he decides to stick to protocol. He regularly leaves his security director, Sloan Kelly, and his superintendent, Nak Morkesh, out of key decisions. These are people that should probably be in the room.
Right. There's a reason why you have these people working with you. It's because you have other hired experts. Like, any good leader knows that they need to surround themselves with other people who fill in their lack of knowledge with expert knowledge about the things they don't know, so that they can rely on them.
Right. Part of good leadership, in my opinion, is knowing what to do with the intel once you have it, not knowing all the intel.
Right. And knowing what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. Tan seems, reticent to embrace that, but that's another discussion in which we can talk about Tan all day. But Tan acts regardless of what others would want, it seems. I don't doubt Tan's intentions here. I just doubt his competence. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that I would be the only one, given that there are so many who are growing so unhappy with the state of things on the Nexus, the fact that they're barely hearing anything. And when they are hearing things, it's like, hold on, what's going on? Because there's dwindling food. There's scarce resources, and there's even less now that they've poured resources into funding 2 outposts that failed. And so Tan makes this crucial choice. You know what? Let's just put everyone back in the cryo and to conserve resources. Do you think people are really going to want to go back into cryo?
No. We just woke up.
No. So it doesn't help. And the worst part is that he doesn't seem to understand why others wouldn't want that. That's the crazy part. So this is the boiling point that is reached for outspoken dissidents and a group of people, and they rebel. And this group of rebels is led by a Turian former engineer, Calix Corvinus.
So this is all before the human arc. Hyperion even gets there.
Yeah. This happens all before the player character even starts the game in Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah.
This is the situation that has transpired before Ryder ever talks to Tan.
Man, this is a total mess that they're coming into. So, well, I'm interested to hear more about what goes on with this, but we need to take a quick break and thank our patrons. So we'll be right back.
Message coming in. Patching it through.
I am sovereign, and this station is mine. I like the sound of that.
All right, so here we are in the middle of the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you to our brand new patrons. We've got some new pledges, including Commander Shanko, Teacup92 and Stephen P. Thank you for signing up on the Patreon. You guys are the best. Genuinely, I said that in a very funny voice, but I do mean it genuinely. Sam and I very much appreciate the support. This does help. This is my career creating podcasts, and this is a big extra thing that Sam does aside from his main job. And it's a big support because it helps us make sure that we can keep doing this as a part of our regular thing. And it definitely supports us and helps with our finances and keeps things going for us. But a big thank you to you guys. A big thank you to our Commander Shepard tier 5 patrons, Hool the Fool, Apollo, and Pipe Man. Thank you for being here and supporting the show. And to all 45 of our patrons right now, thank you to all of you guys. And if we've done anything to help you guys get through your workday, your workout, your drive to work, or going out to dinner and thinking that you weren't going to make it in time for a podcast, but you got back anyway because the server was just on it tonight. Man, she just brought that food so fast, and then she got you the check, and then everything was super good, and you didn't have to worry, even though your wife got back really, really late from work, but you were still able to get that gyro platter from the Greek place that you like to go to on occasion. Man, it was really good. And then you did the podcast anyway, and sometimes you felt like you had to burp up some gyro meat, but like you just held it down because you're on a podcast and you didn't want to burp on a podcast. Then go check out patreon.com/Mass Effect Lorecast if that sounds like something that you just went through while listening to a podcast, for all the different tiers where you can sign up and get ad-free episodes for like tier 1, or sign up for tier 4 and join us on a future episode of the show and get like t-shirts and stuff, or tier 3 and get stickers and all sorts of other fun stuff. So yeah, we really do appreciate the support. Also, there's all sorts of other ways that you can help support us, including telling your friends, or rating and reviewing the show on Apple or Spotify. And Sam, I see here in the notes that you wrote that we are currently at 193 ratings on Spotify.
Yeah, we are 193. That surprised me too. And the impressive point of that, we could have 193 ratings and have like a 2-star rating on average. That would not be good.
That would not be good.
But instead, it is 4.9 stars. That's our average rating.
Wow. You know what that means? That means that we'd still need everybody to give us 5 stars, but we will never be at a 5-star rating.
It means statistically, yeah, it's not ever going to be possible now.
Unless at some point they just round up.
I feel like they do.
At some point, like,
I've seen 5-star ratings, so
I mean, at some point they got to round up, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I wonder what that point is. Like, if we like, maybe we have like 1 4-star and like the rest of them are 5. I don't know. We can't tell. But at some point, it just nudges, like just a little bit, just kind of just like
the 1 4-star is the German judge.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But thank you for everybody for your support, and also remember that you can always join us on the Robots Radio Discord, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on each of the episodes, even if you're listening to old episodes and you have some thoughts on a topic we haven't talked about recently. We're always happy to chat with you guys, and the community is awesome. Anyway, let's get on with the rest of the show. Here we go.
Spit it out, or are you trying to build suspense?
You're so dense, sir. Obviously, I do not know as much about human relationships as I thought.
All right, so, Sam, what happens with the rebellion?
So the messaging resonates with a lot of people. The messaging that Calyx is sending out about being, I imagine it's not that hard. Like, we're hungry. Leadership doesn't know what the hell they're doing. This is ridiculous. I'm not going back into cryo. Time for a change. This messaging resonates with a lot of people, and the movement spreads, leading to a huge portion of the Nexus not recognizing leadership's authority as legitimate.
Do we know how many of them think that way? Like, do we have a sense of that?
Not that I know of, to be honest. There are still a couple of books that I need to read. So I'm sure if someone's better versed in the Andromeda books, will listen to this and let us know. But I haven't seen any designations that would indicate whether the rebels are a majority. But that's also hard to say given how many people were still in cryo at the time.
Yeah. A lot of people just aren't aware because they're not awake.
Right. And judging on gameplay, the rebels were a small group, but they were big and loud enough to cause unrest and to kind of put a dent in the Andromeda Initiative's plans once they left.
I feel like this is a thing that happens in our own world often with the internet. You know, like the vocal minority is, as long as you're loud enough to make it seem like it's a big deal, then that might be enough.
Yeah, it's definitely. And, you know, even before the advent of the internet, long before the advent of the internet, the times where populism prevailed, but when it was being perpetrated by small vocal minority political groups. And by the way, when we say minority, we don't mean, you know, racial minority. We mean political minority.
Right. Right.
When it was, prime example is, you know, and it's going to be overplayed, but the prime example that I can think of is the National Socialist Party pre-World War II. They were able to seize a lot of power, even though they were a minority political party.
Yeah.
They were never a majority party. So it's important for us to remember these kinds of things. I'm not likening the Andromeda Exiles or rebels to Nazis at all. I'm just saying that the concept of
a minority group being able to influence the majority have a larger effect than it seems like they would actually be able to have based on their numbers.
Definitely. That's why freedom of expression, freedom of speech is so important.
Right.
Because your voice matters, and how loud you are when you say something matters. And you say it often and loud enough, people are going to wonder what the ruckus is about.
Right. So was there did they come up with a method to put down the rebellions?
Yeah, they did. And the initiative leadership's solution, let's awaken the Krogan.
Wake the Krogan. It sounds close enough to Kraken that it sounds pretty cool.
Yes. Wake the Krogan. And if this sounds familiar to Mass Effect fans, that's because it is. And I think we know where this is going at this point. Oh, you have a problem? Krogan solution.
Bring in the Krogan. We'll just point them in a direction and say, crush it. Go.
Yeah. It's always something new with these motherfuckers, isn't it? No, I'm joking. It's always something old when it comes to Solarian leadership and seeking the Krogan for solutions to their problem. But before we get into that part, Foster Addison, the Colonial Affairs Director with the Andromeda Initiative, sends her assistant, William Spinder, by the way, absolute scumbag, but one of the most underrated, well-written characters in the whole game, in my opinion. Because sometimes there are characters who are absolutely detestable or pathetic, but the way they're written is like so delicious. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A well-written character that you hate is still a well-written character.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Important point. This William Spinder is kind of like the Peter Baelish of the Andromeda Initiative. For all the Game of Thrones fans out there.
Right.
And so Foster Addison sends William Spinder, her assistant, to get the newly awakened Krogan warriors to cooperate. And in turn, Spinder makes this deal where Spinder promises Nakmor Morda, the leader of Clan Nakmor, a position as chief of staff if the clan helps quell the Krogan rebellions, or not the Krogan rebellions. It's so similar that it's like I'm literally crossing wires in my head. If they help quell the Nexus rebellions,
right,
and the Krogan do.
Oh, okay.
And as predicted, a bloody path is carved into the ranks of the fellow colonists. That includes Calyx. And Calyx was, rather well liked by numerous people. So those left standing are not happy, but they are given a choice. Go back into cryostasis or leave. And that's a hell of a choice because it's like, leave, go where?
Go where? Yeah. Just find a planet and just like start building fires and tents. Like,
I don't know. I'm just imagining Tan saying, I don't care where you go, but you can't stay here.
Right. Like, get out of my bar. Yeah.
Yeah. And Tan doing it with a typically cold demeanor, as Tan so often delivers. But this is a problem. So the Krogan have been awakened. The rebel uprising has been put down. Calyx has been killed, along with plenty of other rebels. And Sloane Kelly wasn't consulted in the Krogan choice. This is important because Sloane Kelly was the security's head of security with the Andromeda Initiative. And the head of security wasn't even consulted about waking up this clan of Krogan and enlisting them as a brute force to quell the uprising.
Yeah.
Seems like this is the most relevant person to include in this conversation.
Right.
And
it seems like they would be totally pissed about not being included.
Yeah, she was pissed. She was pissed. So she defects and she joins the other side. She forms a faction and decides to steal Ket shipments when they go hungry. This is after she defects. She leaves with the Exiles and she forms a faction and then hits these Ket convoys. She and her faction eventually settle on Kadara and they kick out some occupying Ket there. Now, some Exiles, don't really like. Not a bad setup.
Yeah.
Some Exiles don't really like Sloane's rigid leadership, her carry your weight style, and if we're being honest, sometimes downright brutal style. So they join or form their own factions. And this is ironically probably how the Angara made first contact with the Milky Way races. It wasn't with the Andromeda Initiative, because the Angara already know that the Milky Way races are there by the time Ryder meets them.
So they come across a bunch of little squabbling rebel groups. And
yes,
you're right. So it's like, man, you guys are totally not organized and you're all pissed off at each other. These are the new people visiting our galaxy?
Oh, don't worry about it. We got kicked out.
Awesome. You guys seem like you totally got everything covered. You're totally with it. Great.
They're putting their comrades' heads on pikes. Why are they doing that?
So Lord of the Flies is visiting us. Wonderful. Yeah.
They're huge classic literature fans.
They're passing a conch around, taking turns. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, and this is how they make first contact. Though it could have been worse, maybe they're fans because Sloane's rebels and her group kicked out the Ket from Kadara. So some Angara are probably happy about that, at least initially.
Yeah.
And yet this is, and it's interesting too, because back up a couple episodes to when we were talking about the Initiative and when they did make first contact with the Angara and the Angaran resistance, Tan likes to congratulate Ryder depending on how the Initiative makes first contact. But Tan makes it look like to Ryder that this is the official recognized first contact. The previous one, it didn't count. But in all likelihood, Tan knows. Tan knows the rebels were conversing with the Angara. But that's beside the point.
Don't pay attention to that Leif Erikson. He doesn't really count. Columbus is our man.
Yeah, that exact concept. Yeah. And speaking of the Krogan who put down the rebellions, this is, a totally unforeseen circumstance that no one would ever guess happens to the Krogan. When the rebellion's put down, Morta wants that deal with Spinder honored. And Tan's surprised because Spinder didn't bring it up. And Spinder denies ever promising anything of the sort. So Tan refuses to honor the deal. This is also because, if we're being deadly honest, Tan is pretty racist against the Krogan. Mm-hmm. And Tan has made remarks here and there where it's like, whoa, dude, you got a problem. But Tan refuses to honor the deal. And then most of the Krogan end up leaving to settle their own colony. So they willfully leave. They become exiles. They settle the new colony named New Tuchanka on Eladin. And so once again, we see in the Mass Effect universe, this time in a different galaxy, that the Krogan are manipulated and used to put down a rebellion. And then they're ostracized for wanting too much in return.
Ugh. You think they'd learn? You think we'd learn from history, everybody?
Yeah,
I guess not.
Yeah, that I don't. And lo and behold, a Solarian is the director of the initiative at that time. So yeah. So it turns out Spinder, by the way, was playing both sides. We find out later that Spinder actually supplied credits to the rebels too.
Jeez.
And actively, like coordinated with them to keep the conflict going. And then Spinder was privately planning on just picking the winning faction and being like, I was part of your team all along.
Right. Well, it's you bet on both sides and you never lose.
Yeah, until you do.
Until somebody finds out, and then it's just like, you two-faced son of a. Okay, so at the beginning of the episode, you mentioned the Exiles ended up forming multiple factions.
That they did. The Exiles are not an organized group. It's just a people. It's a name given to the people who either left willingly or were kicked out of the Nexus. And their real only unifying quality is that they opposed the Andromeda Initiative's authority. And so the factions that end up forming from Exiles are actually more akin to gangs, more often than not. Given that Kadara is one of the critical junctures where these gangs meet, you could probably make an entire movie and call it Gangs of Kadara. Gangs in New York, by the way, great movie, unless if anyone's not seen it yet. I don't know how you would have gone without seeing it this long, but it includes multiple groups, by the way, the gangs that I'm mentioning, and those groups include the Outcasts.
Hey, yeah.
The Collective, the Three Sabers, the Krogan, and a generic rogue outlaws group, which in my opinion only serves to be another variety of enemies. They just called them outlaws.
So the Outcasts. Hey, let me some sugar. I am your neighbor. And the Collective. So who are they?
So those are two groups who, you remember, I just mentioned Sloane Kelly. Mm-hmm. The faction that she forms is called the Outcasts. And the Collective is led by a very mysterious figure who is called the Charlatan. And so the Collective opposes the Outcasts on Kadara. So there becomes a new power dynamic on a different planet away from the Initiative.
But who doesn't like Outcast?
Well, given how the Outcasts act in Mass Effect Andromeda, probably a lot of people.
Okay, we're talking about the game. Right?
That dynamic is something that we will talk about in the next episode.
All right, sounds good, man. So this is I like how everything is kind of falling apart into each of these groups. This is cool. But thank you everybody for listening. We're going to wrap this episode up. And just a reminder, we're doing the whole 2 episodes every week thing. So we will be wrapping this episode up. And this is the live show. If you're tuning in for the live show, we will be going right into the next episode. And if you are listening to this on your downloader thing, then you will be getting an extra episode this week later in the week. Did I say weep? Anyway, I've been talking already for a long time tonight, but we've still got another episode to do. But Sam, you got anything cool going on you want to share before we head out?
Yeah, I do. I am streaming Saturdays, Mondays, and Thursdays. Saturdays is Sassy Shep Saturdays. I'm nearing the end of Mass Effect 1, about to finish Mass Effect 1 and then jump into Mass Effect 2, of course, on my very first FemShep playthrough. Mondays, rotating slew, doing Elden Ring right now, and Throwback Thursdays, I'm thinking about starting a new Dragon Age playthrough, although this is going to be my first Dragon Age playthrough ever.
Nice.
If you're interested in catching any of those, give me a follow on Twitch at N7TheLegend, same handle on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. And I just launched the Lord of the Rings Lorecast. You can get that on whatever podcatcher you're listening to this on. So go ahead and just search that and go ahead and subscribe. It's free. and I just dropped episode 2 today, that being Monday when we're recording this. So 2 episodes describing all of the background of the world, starting with the creation of everything and just going from there forward through time all the way to the destruction of the One Ring. And it's going awesome. I'm having a blast talking about the Lord of the Rings. It's the reason why I'm into all of this nerdy, sci-fi and fantasy stuff. But go check that out. And I'm also raising money to help people in Ukraine because some total asshole over in Russia decided that he wanted to kill a bunch of people and try to take their land. And man, I hope that never happens to anybody, but that totally sucks. And there's a lot of people over there who need medical attention. So we're raising money, and I started this about a week and a half ago, and I just decided, you know what, let's see if our community wants to chip in some money, and I'll match the first $100 that's raised. We'll see if we can raise $100. And as of tonight, when we started during the Witcher Lorecast, which we did before this, it was at like $529 already tonight. Thanks to Toasty, Rob the Princess, and Blixa the Cat, we're up to $799. Holy crap. So if you guys want to help contribute some money to help save some lives, you just want to give up a coffee or two, anything will help. There is a link in the show notes. You can also go to the Robots Radio Discord, look in the announcements channel there for the link. I'm just going to keep on running this until, this is for Project Hope, by the way. This is a very legitimate, trusted source where you can donate money, and they're going to, send over medical supplies for people in need. So that's what we got going on, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. So don't go anywhere. And thanks for being here, everybody. Until next time, don't send Krogans off to kill people, because it's probably going to start terrible things, and then they're going to feel used, and then that never works out very well. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Mass Effect Lorecast. We'd love to hear your opinion and thoughts on the lore of Mass Effect. Reach out to us on Twitter at Mass Effect Cast, or check out the Robots Radio Discord. Also, you can send us an email at masseffectlorecast@gmail.com.